would like to ask Professor Carlos Sekven to open our Reza Sarhangi Memorial event.
Thank you, Christoph. Well, good morning. On behalf of the Board of Directors of the Bridges Organization, I would like to welcome you to this 19th Bridges Conference in beautiful Jyväskylä. Under normal circumstances, it would have been Reza Sarhangi who would have given the opening speech, would have welcomed you, and all get you fired up with his contagious enthusiasm. I've known Reza for more than 19 years. I first met him in 1997 in Albany, New York, at a art math workshop organized by Nat Friedman. That's also where I met George Hart for the first time. There were a few of these workshops beforehand, but I think the 1997 workshop was particularly stimulating and contagious. There were many wonderful people there. I distinctly remember John Horton Conway. He was sitting on the stage surrounded by large models of all the Platonic solids and of all the Archimedean solids, and he was telling us about the family relationships between all of those bodies. I also remember Chris Palmer, who taught us how to fold abstract geometrical patterns with origami techniques. There were a few famous artists there, such as Charles O'Perry and Brent Collins. And then some of us had the good fortune that after the conference, we could actually visit the studio of Bob Longhurst and of George Rickey. So overall, it was such a wonderful event that many of us thought we need more events like this. It was therefore easy to have Nat Friedman convince me to put on Art Math 98 in Berkeley. And then he also convinced Reza to do an art math conference with him in beautiful San Sebastian in Spain in 1999. In 98, David Salison from the University of Washington came to Berkeley. He already had some connections to Berkeley. And in 99, he sent then Craig Kaplan as an emissary to San Sebastian. And then together, David and Craig organized the wonderful Millennial Mosaic Symposium at the University of Washington. So while all this was going on, that was not enough for Reza. Already in 98, Reza started a Bridges conference in Winfield, Kansas. And that conference had a very special atmosphere. There's no place you can go after dinner in Winfield, Kansas. So we all huddled around in one of the dining rooms of the campus, and we had these wonderful discussions going all the way from art to quantum physics. And as a very special treat, we had Corey Zarofsek there, and he was playing for us on the violin that is 250 years old. It's a Guarneri del Jesus. And that was just such a wonderful treat that I'll never forget that very first Bridges conference. It was in these Bridges conference where it became clear that Reza is really of a different caliber. Art Math 98 in Berkeley, for me, that was a one-shot deal, and that was it. I've used up all the energy I had. Nat Friedman did a few more art math workshops after that. But Reza, he just kept on going and going year after year, putting on these Bridges conference, and they became ever bigger and ever better. First, he started to add a formal music night. We always had an informal music night already. Then he started to add, short math movie festival. Then he started to add theoretical readings of some theoretical pieces that had to do with art or mathematics. Then he started to add family day, started to add excursion day. And so it's quite clear that the growth and success of the Bridges Conference is deeply rooted in Reza Sarhangi. First of all, Reza had this incredible amount of energy. If you take the energy output of Reza and you define this to be one Reza, then most of us will have just a few milli-Reza of output. But it was not just the energy, it was also the personality of Reza. Reza was always optimistic, always enthusiastic, and always supportive of any kind of new idea that he heard of, or any special pet project that anybody would have had. So we will miss Reza very much as a person. But fortunately, Reza will live on through this incredible legacy that he has left with the Bridges organization, with the annual conferences, with the new way of teaching mathematics as being fun, with the mini symposia, and last but not least, a whole long shelf full of beautiful, stimulating Bridges proceedings. Fortunately, Reza will be with us in spirit. I'm sure that when you go through the conference and you take part in all the exciting events in this conference, you will feel that Reza is here with us. So I hope very much that you will enjoy the conference and think of Reza as you do so. Thank you. And thank you, Reza. Now, the Bridges effort must go on, and it will go on. Fortunately, we have a few very dedicated people that have made a pledge of giving a special effort of keeping it going. And one such person is Craig Kaplan, another one of the directors of the Bridges Conference. He's a professor at the University of Waterloo. He has been instrumental in many, many of the conferences behind the scene to put on the web page and the easy chair reviewing system, and then the production of the proceedings. And he will go on doing that. And in addition, he will make a special effort next year to do even more for Bridges. Please welcome Craig Kaplan.
Hi, good morning, everybody. Talking about math is easy. Talking about people is hard. So I've got my notes today. I'll continue the story just a little bit more, say some of the same things that Carlos said, mostly just keep it brief and remember Reza. Maybe if we can say that Reza inherited the art math tradition and movement from Carlo, then maybe I'm the generation after that has to continue it to the future. And well, hopefully some of you here might be the generation after that. That's the most we can hope for. So one of the very first conferences I ever attended, academic conferences, was the ISAMA 1999 conference that Carlo mentioned in San Sebastian. And I was a pretty young grad student at the time. I guess I probably had a little bit more hair. It was a little bit less gray at the time. Maybe Bridges has played a little bit of a role in the transition over the years. And I was just starting to play around with mathematical art as a research topic professionally. And my supervisor, David Salazin, had gone to Carlos' Art Math Conference in 1998 in Berkeley. So he had found out about the ISAMA conference, and I think he had a flyer on his desk or something, and I caught wind of it and said, well, I got to find an excuse to go to that. So I wrote a paper, and I must have convinced him to send me, and that was actually the first time I had been to Europe was to go to Spain for that conference. And that was where I first met Reza, and he was a compact, effusive, and highly energetic man, such as I'd never seen, kind of like always bristling with electricity, I'm sure a lot of you will know. And of course, at the same conference, I met a lot of the rest of the Bridges community that I know today, a lot of you who are here. I remember specifically, the first memory I have thinking back was that his camera had been stolen. I don't know if I'm remembering that correctly. And it didn't seem to bother him at all, which I thought was really funny. It's like, there's a certain joie de vivre there that comes with like not being at all perturbed about that. And I kind of followed him around, started chatting with him. I discovered that he was hosting his own art math event at his small college in the middle of the United States. And it sounded like a lot of fun, especially the way he described it. So at the same time, as Carlos said, Nat Friedman was busy convincing my supervisor, David Salazin, to host an art math conference, ostensibly ISAMA 2000 in Seattle at the University of Washington. That isn't what ended up happening, but that's another story. We don't need to go into it today. The important thing is I saw an opportunity for a quick con, and I told David, well, I would really like to help you organize ISAMA 2000 in Seattle, but in order to do that, you had better send me to this conference in Kansas to gather intelligence. That's going to be important, so we can find out how these things are run. So he agreed to foot the bill, and so I flew from Seattle to Wichita, and then got on in a van that took me to Winfield, Kansas, in the middle of nowhere, to Southwestern College for my first Bridges conference. And of course, like many of you, I immediately fell in love with the field, with the conference, and with Reza, right? He's a passionate guy, always. And try to imagine him seeing something and saying, well, that's pretty good. You know, that's okay. Right? No, of course not. You'll forgive me, but it was always, it's so beautiful, right? Oh my God, so nice. That's what I will remember most of all. If nothing, if you can hear his voice and when you're seeing mathematical art, you're carrying on his legacy. And he's always a very warm person. You know, in the early days of the conference, when we had fewer people, at the end of the conference, as Carlos said, there wasn't really anywhere to go. He would invite the whole conference back to his house for drinks, which is a nice gesture. We can't all do that, especially not with such a lovely crowd, but a big crowd. You know, it was clear he had started building a community around him, and he made us all want to be a part of it. So it's been almost 20 years now. As Carlos said, this is the 19th Bridges Conference. And we've grown a lot. We've evolved considerably. We formed an actual nonprofit organization to oversee the conference, and I got sucked into that. I guess it was around 2005 that we did that. But in many important ways, of course, the conference hasn't changed. It's still a warm and inviting, welcoming and inclusive event. As we describe it online, it's an atmosphere of exchange and mutual inspiration. And all of that really can be said. It flows out from Reza's spirit. He is the one who imbued the conference with that spirit, the desire to share and inspire. And for my part, I mean, there's no question that the Bridges Conference has altered my life and my career permanently and in a beneficial way. I mean, because of Reza's enthusiasm, I was driven into this field, and he gave me a desire to want to stay here and to play here and to mold the way that I think of new ideas and decide what I want to work on. Is, you know, partly inspired by this conference, where I can seek my inspiration from. He gave me a place to talk about ideas for all of us, to talk about ideas that are beautiful in every sense of the word. And you know, the fact that he gave us an excuse to call that work is just a positive side benefit. So it's hard to imagine, you know, that we have to move on, that someone who was larger than life has left us, and has left us too soon. Bridges won't be the same without him, there's no question, but you know, the best thing that we can do as an organization, as a community, to honor him is to make the Bridges Conference this year and, you know, every year in the future the event that he would want it to be, the inspiring event that he would want. He put so much of his life and time into this conference, and I can only hope that we can all continue to keep that flame burning for many years to come. So I hope you enjoy this year's conference, and I hope you enjoy them long into the future. So thanks.
Yeah, as Craig has mentioned, you know, this conference is something really special. And among the several emails that the Bridges board has received from people, you know, sending their condolences about Reza's passing away, several people have mentioned that this conference was like a defining event in their life, that it has changed something, that they suddenly opened up to a completely different community that they had been known existed before, and it changed the course of their life. And I must say, for the last definitely 15 or even more years, the Bridges Conference has been the annual highlight for me. That's always what I'm living for. That's the conference I want to go, though. That's what I'm striving for every single year. Among other messages that we got, there seemed to be another unanimous theme. We've heard about the energy, we have heard about the enthusiasm and the personality of Reza, but there's one more element. Many people have commented that Reza had a really wonderful, big, warm heart. And that's definitely true. Unfortunately, from an engineering point of view, that heart was just not able to keep up with the activity level that Reza demanded of his organ. Now we go even further back in history of art and mathematics, and the next speaker is even so before the art math workshops in Albany. It gives me a pleasure to introduce Professor Michele Emmer. He's a professor at the University of Rome, La Sapienza, and for me, he did a very important thing around 1992, and that was he published Visual Mind, a compendium of wonderful articles about art and mathematics. Some of them were gleaned out of the Leonardo Journal. But there was a crucial paper in there that talked about this guy, Brent Collins, and the kind of saddle shapes that he would do and how you mathematically can understand that. And that prompted me to get in contact with Brent Collins. And then the collaboration with Brent Collins is what got me to the conference 1997 with Nat Friedman in Albany. And that's how I got into the Bridges thing. So without that visual mind of Michele Emmer, I might completely have missed the boat and my life might have drifted away to somewhere else, and that would have been a real pity. So please welcome Michele Emmer.
Thank you very much for accepting me to come here to speak in honor of Reza. I would like first to say that as I am also a writer, I know very well that if you don't write something that you are very interested in the moment, or a few moments, or a few days, then you forgot everything. And for me, it was very hard to put together the moment that I spent with Reza when I met the first time, because I have not written anything at the time. And the time was 20 years ago. And I moved from the University of La Sapienza last year, and I was obliged to destroy a lot of materials without any looking at them, because it was a work of 45 years, so it was impossible to bring everything at home. And the second important thing is that now it seems natural in the world of mathematics to speak about math and art. 20 years ago, 30 years ago, was impossible. Was impossible to organize a conference, was impossible to obtain a grant, was impossible to make research, was impossible to publish books. The third element is very interesting, is sometimes happens in any section of human activity that people in different places have the same ideas, with no connection. One of the most famous examples is the Georgi-Nash theorem. It was posed by two mathematicians in two different countries with no contact at all between them. So I have tried to reconstruct a little bit of the story, but just a little bit. I didn't remember I was also in Albany, but I didn't remember I was there with Nat Friedman. Just a part of the story, in a sense also before 1997. From here I can't read what is written there, but you can read it. So I think in this first line there is written that there was the project of the movies on art and mathematics started in 1976. And the reason why he started, because my father was a filmmaker. If my father was not a filmmaker, it would be, for me, impossible to make any movie. And ask to the Italian math community to make a movie on math, they will only laugh. Now they ask you. Then there was the large traveling exhibition on the Eye of Horus, made in connection with La Villette. And then the first volume of the series, The Visual Mind without number, and then The Visual Mind 2 in 2005. And in 1997, I organized the first conference on mathematics and culture, including the section on art and mathematics, and then the first volume of the series of Springer on mathematics and culture, and then the title is Imagine Math, etc. And it was exactly in the same year, and I think we don't met before, that I really don't remember. Probably it was the meeting in Albany the first time I met Reza. No, I take the text because otherwise I cannot see what is written there. One difference from 20 years ago is And then I went to the conference of bridges in this place in Kansas in 1998. If I remember well, I showed the film on Escher and the one on Max Bill. And it was now I remember, the year of the conference on Escher in Rome. And then we invited vice versa speakers from one conference to the others and vice versa. And then I came also to the conference in Granada in 2003. But what I would like to tell you is something perhaps that only the people who were in Rome in 2011 knows. Reza came to Rome, but not to my university, University of Rome #1, not means that it's the first one, it's simply called #1, to the third university. And he gave a talk. I have to show you. And Reza started his talk. He didn't know that I was in the audience. And he started showing a picture of myself saying, he is the godfather of art and math. I said, well, I'm here. And so we were very glad to meet again. And he organized 2 workshops in Rome. The first one on Platonic solids and the duality principle at the Faculty of Architecture of the University of Roma Tre. I must say that all the pictures that you will see are from Agnese Falconi, and it was given to me by Laura Tedeschini Lalli, who is in the hall, who is a mathematician of the University of Roma Tre in the Faculty of Architecture. So this was the first one, and this was exactly the presentation of the workshop. It's written, of course, in Italian. I made a little translation of 2 words, but. Then the second one, it's always in the Faculty of Architecture, Roma Tre, on the theme, also on the connection on mathematics and art, on mosaics design. And I will show you now a few pictures of the workshop. The person you see on the left is Gianmarco Todesco. Gianmarco Todesco is an expert in computer animation and also in geometry and computer graphics. He is the boss of the company who made the software for all the film of Miyazaki and also for Balto Spielberg. All the software is not very known, that all the software made in the film, used in the film of Miyazaki are made in Via Tiburtina in Rome. And it's strange for the Japanese. So this is because at that time, Gianmarco was teaching at the University of Roma 3. He is the person who helped me always with the conference in mathematical culture in Venice. That started in 1997. So I must say that we need people who want and are able to exchange ideas from different cultures, from Europe to Asia, to Africa to America. I will read now. We need people who think culture is important, all cultures, that believe in peace and free circulation of humans and minds. As mathematician, we have a great advantage. We use a really universal language. And I will make next year, on my 20th anniversary conference in Venice, an homage to Reza, and I will dedicate to him the proceedings of the conference. And I will finish with very, very famous words from a song. And I would like to tell you something that nobody knows, because it's a very private thing. In Paris, in November, 21 people were killed just 2 floors down the home of my son. And my daughter, granddaughter, saw what happened from the window. After a week, some young people, friends of the people who were killed there, came, and they started singing a very famous song with no instrument, just a word. And my 2 granddaughters asked me, "Ma, what is this song?" They didn't know the song. They are 12 and 14. Now I will read you some of the words of this song for Reza. Imagine there is no countries. It isn't hard to do, nothing to kill or die for, and no religion. Imagine all the people living life in peace. You may say I am a dreamer, but I am not the only one. I hope someday you'll join us, and the world will be as one. Thank you.
Thank you, Michele, for sharing some of these wonderful, very personal memories of you and Reza and the beginning of the art and math, movement. Our next speaker brings us much, much closer to the present again. Sujan Shrestha is the hidden power that really makes these recent conferences all go so smoothly. There's an incredible amount of detail that has to be taken care of, from organizing, the badges to getting taken care of some of the publications. And Sujan has done an amazing job of really keeping all of those tasks under control and delivering a really wonderful and well-organized machinery that makes us all able to enjoy these conferences as we are. So please, Sujan, and give us your memories of Reza, because Sujan was very, very close to Reza. Come on in.
Thank you, Carlo. It is surely very difficult to talk about a person than actually giving a talk. So I made notes as well, so I can be more. I know it's a very hard to talk about Reza, especially knowing his incredible personality for those who knew him and worked with him for many years. I've known Reza for about 8 years, where I met him at Towson University. A lot of you don't know me because I'm the youngest machine in Bridges organization, probably. I've been with Bridges for about 4 years, unofficially, 3 years officially. First, I would like to express my heartfelt thanks to all the conference organizers, because they've been, it's not just me and the Bridges board, but the local organizers here at the University of Oslo has done a fantastic work. So let's give them a big hand, all the faculty, staff, and they've been working with me, 6,000 miles away, going back and forth on emails, getting all the things ready, and Christoph right there, who's been a wonderful local host, who's done a fantastic job here. So thank you all. We're here to celebrate Reza's passion, his inspiration, obsession, and obsession of connecting mathematics and art. That brings us together all year round, and this is why I enjoy Bridges so much. When I first came, it's kind of that his intellect and that infectious personality that sort of kept me closer to Bridges every year for the last 3 years, and I love it. Bridges was Reza's vision. I truly got to know him very closely, especially towards the last day of his life. And we had a great talks about a lot of things. It was his true work of art, as a lot of Bridges board will tell you about it. We are his family. He always talked about Bridges is a part of the family. It is not just an organization, but we're all that part of that family. So I would like to stress that a little bit. One of the things that I learned about Reza as I got to know him more is, as we all can remember him from his, sense of humor, sometimes dry, right? I mean, just, but most importantly, he really cared about people, and that was his biggest thing. He cared about teachers and students. That was always his first and foremost. He always thought mathematics education should be always the first thing, and he always thought about that. We have truly lost a very great friend who has inspired and motivated many of us to be here today. We'll miss his infectious smile and greetings every day at the registration desk, if you remember him, every year that he was always there. His sense of humor and his intellect, as many of you had dinner, lunches, and coffees with him over the years, the last 18, 20 years, or even more than that. So, and talk about Reza's sense of humor a little bit. Ever wonder what Reza would have thought about the US presidential conventions? Just for briefly, I was thinking about it last night, just for a minute, I was thinking about what to say. And I thought, because oftentimes I would have dinner or lunch with Reza, and he would bring up religion, politics, and all different kinds of stuff. And I always thought about what would he have thought of this past 2 weeks of wonderful American convention, political system, right? So it's something to think about. Now I'm going to bring into come to the future of Bridges a little bit that Reza had always talked about. In the past 18 years, Bridges has grown into one of the largest interdisciplinary conferences in the world. Reza's vision of Bridges Conference was to create programs that could directly impact the classroom. That was truly what he tried to do, or has done. He truly believed teaching and learning in the area of mathematics, arts, and science should be welcomed in the classroom of 21st century. He believed in developing innovative ideas through creative practitioners like yourselves, who are in diverse disciplines, as Mikhail also brought it up earlier. His future vision of Bridges, which is titled in the short paper this year, Bridges Center for Mathematical Connections in Art and Science, is in 2016 proceeding. He wanted to see this center as a physical space as part of Bridges' educational umbrella. And which could support future mathematician, artists, and broader community. And that was sort of his part of that vision. So if you get to read that paper, please send us feedback and comments and see what you think about. I would really like to hear from you. For me, Reza was a very special person. I've got to know him for almost a decade now, and my kids grew around him. That was unfortunately, I have a little one outside who's very full of screaming, so we decided not to bring him inside. But both my kids really was close to Reza, and so we decided all family to join this Finland conference. He was a great friend and a wonderful mentor to me, who continues to inspire me even every single day. So I will truly miss him forever. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Sujan. Our next speaker is clearly the person who knows Reza the very best. It's Reza's wife, Mary. Now, I mentioned before the Unit 1 Reza. That was not just Reza by himself. It was really the team of Reza and Mary. And we will probably never know exactly what fraction, is Reza pure and what fraction is, the parts to Mary, but there's no doubt that those two individuals together, they're really the heart and the driving force behind the Bridges Conference. And so now I would like to invite Mary to come up here and maybe share a few personal thoughts. Please, Mary.
I have never spoken in front of so many people. But 40 years ago, it was about this time that I met Reza for the very first time. We both were working in a theater. I was designing clothes, and I was taking care of back of the scene and managing. And Reza was doing almost the same thing. He was also in the same theater. Then in the next March, the March after that, we got married. And we decided that we are going to teach, both of us. The only thing was that Reza didn't know if he wants to teach as a theater major or theater teacher, or as a mathematician, or I should say teach in high school, a math teacher, something like that. Eventually, we decided that he will teach math, because I saw when he was helping our friend, he was doing such a good job. He was making it so simple and so tangible. And I felt that this is such a waste if he doesn't go in this. And he had a great handwriting. He could do sculpting, drawing, painting, woodworking. Many of this you haven't seen at all from him. But those who are in theater know that most of the people need to know some of this at least to make everything, to prepare everything on time. In 1986, we moved to Wichita, Kansas, because back home, we didn't have PhD in math. And in 1994, but he never, by the way, he was a PhD student, but never lost interest in theater or art in general. In 1994, we moved to Winfield, Kansas. It was a city of 10,000 people, and our school had 1,000 students. In the day that they had the interview, he had the interview, after interview about what he's doing as a math teacher, he talked to the people in theater department and a little bit from everywhere that he knew. And they loved him, so they got him. In 96 and 97, if I'm not mistaken, he attended Dr. Nat Friedman's conferences. And in 98, he started the Bridges. We had only $8,000 budget from a school. 5,000 he had as a chair money, and 3,000 from other places. And also the registration fee that we got from attendees. And with those money, he printed the proceedings, schedules. We bought sheets, towels, deodorants, soap, toothpaste, many things that you don't see in a hotel, because we were hosting our guests in our own dorm room. And as Carlos said, it was a small town. So we would get together in one part of the school, and that was how the nucleus of this family formed. Everybody sharing different ideas with each other from different disciplines. And the good thing about our school was that they really appreciated interdisciplinary subjects. So that was another thing that could help Reza and this conference, in fact. From then, every year we got in one part of the world and saw each other. And we had a reunion, and every year was more beautiful and more fruitful than before. And for those who come here for the first time, you will find that what I say is true. It is really a family. It's a family that people don't get jealous of each other's improvement. They help each other to improve. They share ideas. They help them then how you can improve your work. And it has been some of my most beautiful days when I was in Kansas, in Winfield, being with you guys. And of course, some are new here, and you're gonna find it the way I say exactly. And I would welcome you to the bridges as Reza would do. He would say that you're very welcome to your very own conference. The conference that you have built it. You are the bridges. Thank you.